Okay, what we have here is a skull motif scarf with granny clusters either side. So it's a granny skull scarf. If that's a little bit too macabre, I'm very sorry. Basically, after making a shawl that was only skull motifs, I thought, gee, that was a lot of work. And I wanted a long, regular, wear it this way around your neck scarf with a subtle gothic motif. So that's what we've got going on. This is not a difficult pattern. I know it looks complex, but bear with me. If you work it step by step and you can count, you're going to be completely fine. So I have starting materials. Woohoo! Some cotton, 8 ply. I chose this because it's got a really nice drape to it, and I like scarves that kind of hang around my neck. As you can see, this is a little bit lacy and squishy and folds down to nothing, and that works for me. Because I would like it to be quite open, I have chosen to use a, let's go this way, 4.5 millimeter hook. You could also use a 4 mil if you crochet a little bit loose. I probably wouldn't go any bigger than a 4.5 for an 8 ply though. So they're my basic starting materials. You probably want to have some scissors on hand because they're always handy, and some stitch markers or bits of spare cotton that you can tie onto your work, because there are just a couple clusters that it's really helpful to mark for your geography later on. And also because I get bored with counting, so I don't. I just mark the middle of things and use that as my landmark. So let's pretend everybody knows how to start a chain. I'm going to just tie my little loop at the start here. And harder to do without looking. Hook in, tighten that gently. Now, my scarf is about 45 centimeters wide, and so I have a starting chain of 60. And when I start my starting chain, I don't want to do too tight because then my foundation row is going to be a pain in the backside. So I try and kind of have this loose tension. Some people even go up a hook size for a foundation chain. I don't. I just try and pull the hook through so that I have an even tension that's going to be easy for me to work back into on the way back across, sorry. So try and count this as you go. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so far. I want 60. Let's go. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can usually get about 5 with nice tension. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, whoops, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. We're so close. 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. 5 to go. 1, 2, 3, last 5. Okay. And do you know what? Don't stress too much. I have wasted so many hours of my life recounting starting chains, and often tell you a tiny lie here. You can often fudge it. If it doesn't work out, you've skipped a stitch, you've added an extra one. I'm not going to have a nervous breakdown over it. I am going to do a half double crochet foundation chain because I like to have a little bit of substance. And I think this gives a nice weight and drape to my scarf. So yarn over, skip the first chain and half DC into your second chain. Now, incredibly boring. We're just going to do this all the way back across. And I swear, if someone invented a machine that could do this, they'd be a millionaire, because it is easily the most, tedious part of starting something. You can, of course, you can do any type of foundation chain that you like. If you would rather do your fancy half DC or DC foundation chain that comes straight off your hook, go for your life and do that instead. But I find this is the most beginner friendly option. It just takes another complex idea out of the equation. I just keep chaining into my top loop, all the way across. This is also where you get to see if your chain was nice and even. Sometimes if you've pulled one a little bit tight, you might have to stop and worry the point of your hook in there a little bit. But I always feel like a good foundation chain can cover up a multitude of sins. So go for your life. Whoops. Whoops, that was nearly, see that one? Nearly a single crochet by accident because I didn't get my yarn over cleanly before I put it in the loop. Right, I'm nearly halfway across. You may be able to hear that it's bedtime and my child has decided she doesn't really want to go to bed. So she's just going to rant for a little while and make everyone know exactly how unhappy she is with the unjustness of the world. I feel like that might be good parenting. I'm not really sure. If your child's happy with you all the time, maybe we need more boundaries. All right. Come on, nearly halfway and I found a tight chain. Oops. Okay. And again, now if you don't like the way that the granny clusters look, you can totally substitute. Feel free to play with this and make it your own. I think whatever stitch you use on either side of your skull, I'm just going to stop and wipe my hook because it's really squeaky, needs to be the height of a double crochet because otherwise it won't frame your skull properly and the maths won't work and you'll have an ugly bulgy motif, and no one likes ugly bulgy motifs. So if you want to play around with the way you make your clusters, if you want to V-stitch even, totally experiment with the framing stitch on either side of your skull. Now we've got 60 chain in our foundation chain. Then we've got 59 half double crochets across. That's going to give us, think of one on either end as our chain 3 and our finishing DC. And then that gives us 57 stitches in the middle, which are going to host our 19 clusters with 3 double crochet in each cluster. So if you want your scarf to be narrower, it still needs to be a multiple of 3 plus 2. If you want your scarf to be wider, stick with that multiple of 3 plus 2. I, of course, went for an odd multiple of 3 so that my motif would sit in the center of the scarf. So that's just another thing to consider. 19 clusters across is my thing. You could use 17, you could use 15, you could even use 13. It will all look great. It just depends on how narrow or how wide you want your scarf to be. All right, I'm so close. I'm so close. I've nearly done this foundation chain. I really hope that you haven't beaten me to the end and you're sitting there like, come on, why are you so slow at foundation chain? We'll get there, I promise. Okay, here I am. Last couple of stitches. Powering along. Gonna make it. Thank goodness my chain was pretty even. I'm too loud. Oh, I can't get through the last loop. Okay, there we go. Last one, done. And then you can just tug on that a little bit to close your loop off so you don't get a huge like 0 hanging off the end of your work. So there's my foundation chain. As yet, no stitch markers required. And you can see it's about roughly 45 centimeters longer. Obviously, that's going to depend on your yarn and the width of your hook. Now, second row. This is where we get into cluster land. It's so exciting. Chain 3 to turn. 1, 2, 3. Turn your work. And we're going to skip this first stitch and the next one. And then we're going to do 3 double crochet into this loop just here. 1, 2, 3. All right, skip the next 2 stitches and then DC into the 3rd stitch along. And we do our 3 again. 1, 2, 3. So I just call these granny clusters because to me they're that iconic granny square stitch that I, started out learning on. That's better. 1, 2, and 3. Skip the next 2, grab the third one, and you go. 1, whoop, nearly did a half DC, sorry. 1, 2, 3. Skip the next 2, third one along. 1, 2, 3. And we're just continuing the whole way along our foundation like this. And when we get to the end, we will stop and count our clusters, and we're going to mark the middle cluster, because then you don't have to count. Isn't that fantastic? Makes me so happy. Counting is where I frequently come undone. Sophie's Universe was such a bust for me the first time around because I did not count. The second time I made it, you bet I counted every single stitch. Skip 2. 1, 2, 3. Skip the next 2. 1, 2. So you can see I've got quite an open kind of lacy texture here. It's not really closed, and again, that's because I've using a hook a size larger than I would usually with this yarn. Skip 2. Oh no. It's amazing what kind of creative messes I can get myself into. Skip 2. 1, 2, 3. Skip 2. 1, 2, 3. Skip 2. 1, whoops, 2, 3. Skip 2. I can't split the cotton, it drives me nuts. If I put my hook through and split the strands, I have to pull it out and go again. It is the worst. 1, 2, 3. Skip 2. 1, 2. Now, this is where I cheat a little. Like I said, I am not good at counting. I get bored, I lose track. It's not a good situation. So I'm just going to toggle across and check how many clusters I have in case I need to do anything here and fudge how many stitches I have. You know, not ideal, but just the way my brain works. So let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay. Not bad. Well done, me. So I'm going to put my last cluster in here. 1, 2, 3. And then, just like I had my chain 3 on the beginning side to like frame my work, I finish off, I'm being too loud apparently, with 1 DC in the last chain. There we go. So I've got my 1 space and then my last DC in the last stitch of the row. And yeah, look, if you happen to be 1 chain short, no one's going to have a tragedy over it. Don't cry, just fudge it and move on. Chain 3 and turn your work.